In our previous lesson, we touched on the different data types as they pertain to Revit. In this lesson, we're going to reiterate that a bit more as to how it works within Dynamo. This is a concept called wrapping and unwrapping. With this concept, we are looking at a few different namespaces, so classes. We are looking at that revit.elements.element namespace and the autodesk.revit.db element namespace. So there are a few differences there, and wrapping and unwrapping is a weird concept to get your head wrapped around, if you will. So let's take a look at that. If we use an example, I like to use this example anytime I'm talking about this concept, of a burrito, for instance. A wrapped burrito, we can see certain things on the outside of it just by looking at it. We can see that it has a tortilla, it's toasted perhaps, it's warm. There's more things inside. This is a wrapped item. We don't know what's inside until we unwrap it. This is the same thing as a revit.elements.element within the Revit API and Dynamo. If we were to unwrap this burrito, we can see that it has rice in it, tomatoes, cheese, steak, guac, which cost extra, all that good stuff. The same thing applies for Revit API interactions with data types. Within Dynamo itself, we have the concept of the green clickable Revit elements. Those have certain properties that Dynamo has already exposed for us to work with them. When we unwrap them, we access everything else that's available to us in the API, viewable on api.docs.co or with the API and other means. How we wrap and unwrap in C# does vary. So there is a command called internal element, which translates it to a Revit.db counterpart. So that's what we're going to be using the most. To translate it back to a Dynamo element, we use something called 2ds type, which is a design script type, I believe, and that returns a Dynamo element with a green element ID. Since in Revit, all elements are a autodesk.revit.db.element, we have to cast them as what we want them to be. So I mentioned early on in the lessons for this course that you do have to cast things as the object types they are in C#. Python's a little more forgiving in that way, to where you don't have to cast things. C# you do, and that's one thing that hangs a lot of people up. So we are going to look at how to cast things as well when we get into code. Don't worry, this seems like a lot. This lesson's a little bit shorter because we're introducing this topic. In the next lesson, when we're getting elements for Revit, we are going to unwrap and wrap them to interact with them. That way we can start to use API methods. So don't let this scare you. These slides are meant as a supplement for the course. That way you kind of reinforce that wrapping and unwrapping concept as you start to code new nodes for Dynamo for C#. So in that case, what we are going to do is in the next lesson, we are going to fire up our Visual Studio solution, start making some nodes that interact with Revit, and really dive into the weeds when it comes to wrapping and unwrapping Revit elements. That in mind, we will see you in the next lesson.